Daryl, you want to be mayor of Callander. I know you moved there, 8 years ago or something like that?
About 5 years ago now.
5 years now. Wow.
Yeah.
Why do you think you'd be a good mayor of Callander? They've got all kinds of homegrown people, I heard.
Yeah, that's what I've heard that too. So you know what? I was on council in North Bay for a long time. I know you're aware of that. And for those who weren't, I was on council in North Bay for 15 years, 4 consecutive terms. And we moved to Callander. We wanted to be in Callander for a while. The timing was right. So my wife changed jobs. There were some changes that happened in our lives that were, the timing was just right. And we actually found a home that was pre-COVID pricing, so everything worked out for that. So we're down there, and then of course, I thought maybe I'd been done with politics, you know. And then of course, Mr. Leving died, and Morris shortly thereafter. And as everybody knows, they put out, they said, does anybody from the community would be interested in being appointed to council? So I kind of looked at my wife, and I think she looked back at me saying, oh, are we ready to do this again? So I did miss it, I will say. It's a bit like the aviation thing in my background. Like it seems like once it's in your blood, I can't seem to shake it. So I did put my name in. I do joke that it was one of the easier campaigns. I had a couple speeches to do. Yeah. I needed 3 votes. I did get unanimous votes, and here I am. And it was good to be back. You know, I really like making a difference. And as cliche as it sounds, it's always been important to me to be part of something that's bigger than myself. And this goes all the way back to my Kiwanis days. So when I first joined Kiwanis, the reason I joined Kiwanis is there was a lot of very influential business people, and I wanted to know them. And then what ended up happening is that, yes, I got to know them, but then I was helping people. And I was like, you know, I really like doing that. I like helping and making a difference. So there was a Heritage Festival and the Council, Chamber of Commerce. So so I thought about this time. I said, what's next for me? I've done a lot of things, a lot of community involvement, and I feel like it's time. I definitely have the experience. I mean, I know the Municipal Act, procedural bylaws. I know how councils work, and it's very clear to me where Callander needs to go. Like the vision is quite literally crystal clear in my mind of what we need to do in the community, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that. But I'm excited for the opportunity to lead the group, because there will be 2 new people for sure, maybe more, and to bring what I think we should do and lead the community.
Well, what's your vision?
Well, I've talked a lot about it, and I kind of chuckle because, of course, I've talked to many people in the community. I've tried to reach everybody. So one of 2 of my main focuses is growth and community investment. So what I mean by growth is you have to have new assessment. There's been suggestions, I think, by some that say either minimal growth or no growth even, and I think that's just a recipe for disaster. If you want your taxes to spike over the next 5, 6, 10 years, that's the way to do it. So you have to have assessment. It can be done planned and thoughtful. I think there's a little bit worry about that, but there's all kinds of opportunities for infill right in the community. I think there's one lady approached me and said, I really don't want any high rises. And I want to know what did she mean by high rise too? Because is it 3 stories, is it 6 stories? She said, she was very clear. She said, no, I don't want a 6-story building. I heard there's going to be a 6-story building, and I said, well, not that I'm aware of. And I don't know. I shouldn't say I don't know. I don't believe I would support a 6-story high rise in the community of Callander. But there's all kinds of opportunities for infill. We still have municipal roads, and we have water and sewage that we can plug into without a whole lot of expense. So we have to have growth. We have to have assessment, because just like your home, my gas bill keeps going up, the gas in my car keeps going up, my groceries are going up. So municipality is the exact same thing. It just, all our expenses keep climbing, and without new tax revenue, we'll be in trouble. The community investment piece is like, I don't want to make it sound like I'm oversimplifying it, but I'm a big believer that I'd rather fix a road that's in rough shape before I add a new road, or fix a sidewalk before I put a new sidewalk in. So again, it's just like your home. Take care of what you have before you start thinking about adding other things that are more costly and expensive. So, the waterfront, the marina, there's lots of places that can use investment.
I owe somebody in Callander this question because they contacted me in the spring. They're concerned about accessibility. There's some issues there. Chantel is her name,
Yep.
and so I think you're familiar. I think she's running for council.
I believe she is.
And I told her at the time, well, I'm not a working journalist and I didn't have the time to investigate, but I went down to the library. I checked out a quite simple accessibility issue in front of the library that could have been fixed in 3-4 hours as far as I'm concerned. It took many, I'm not even sure if they fixed it yet. Problems with the side, it's not really a sidewalk, but even just getting to the township. And there's a couple other things. Now, what are you going to do to make sure that those little things are done in the meantime and not delayed, and then take a long, hard look at how you can make it more accessible? Because I believe Callander must have an aging population too.
Oh, absolutely. So I'll go back to the community. That's exactly my point with community investment. So if I have $1 million to spend, okay, and I have to decide what to do, those are exactly the kind of things I want to do before I do something new. Now, I'm really happy the way it is in the province of Ontario. Whenever you build something new, so if we were to build a new operations building, of course, all the accessibility has to be built in. Mm-hmm. A lot of these buildings are, getting to be a little bit, I would say, vintage, which kind of dates you and I as well. But those things were not such a high priority. And it is the way it was. It's unfortunate, but absolutely. Dylan Anderson's another young man that's also running for council, and he has some mobility challenges as well. And they should never be excluded from anything because of mobility challenges. I think that's it's sad that it is that way sometimes. But no, investing in little things like that, and you talk about that, or we didn't talk about when you get into the leadership piece. Those are the kind of things that I believe in leading, to make sure that council understands that those types of things are priorities before, because a lot of times I find when people get into politics, they have access to healthy budgets. They're not extravagant by any means, but then they start to think about all these wants instead of focusing on the needs. And I see that happen often. So I want to make sure we stay focused in that right direction.
Well, you were on council when she was raising some of these issues, and when she got really perturbed this January, February, when it sounded like council wasn't taking it serious. What have you done since February, March about that file?
That file in particular, that she's...
the issues that she's raised, do you know what progress has been made at the library about the step? Anything?
That I don't know. I don't have that answer for the library here tonight.
Okay, good question, Dave.
Yeah, good question, Dave. No, I don't know that particular piece.
Okay.
I know that Ms. Cormier is very passionate about the things she talks about. I know she's also had a challenge with the municipality. She's also litigating the municipality, which, I can only say so much about that here. She feels it's the right thing.
Is that a human rights complaint or is it an actual litigation?
It's an actual litigation.
See, I wasn't familiar with that part of it,
Yeah.
but I haven't been talked to her for a while. I think she probably feels I let her down as well. But yeah, and so it's an issue. It's being raised. What are you going to do about it if you're elected mayor, as far as accessibility issues?
Well, look, I mean, we had another example, and I can't remember what meeting it was, Dave. I can't remember them all off by heart. But there was also this council is going to. There's money set aside. I thought it was going to happen this year, but there's some accessibility challenges even at the municipal office. Because if you're familiar with Callander, there's that very steep hill. There's those steps. The fire hall side's a little bit easier to get up, but if you have mobility issues, it's probably more challenging than we would know. So we do have money set aside. I want to say it was a $25,000 to $30,000, and I could be wrong on those numbers, to make sure we had some accessibility for people who have those mobility challenges. Quite frankly, I will look into it first thing tomorrow morning. But if it's simply a step, there are budgets.
I think they might have gone to tender. I'm not sure. They were waiting to go to tender. I haven't been there for a month or so I don't know for sure. The other thing is that the meetings. I think we have the technology, and I think the people are interested enough that you should be recording those meetings video-wise and have them accessible on the website. Is that something that Callander's going to do or not?
It was doing it. We stopped, and I was in favor of stopping. There's a few reasons. It takes a little bit more time than I think people think. I mean, it's very small staff in Callander, a lot smaller than I thought when I first got there. I mean, tonight we're working on a video, and you can appreciate that you're going to have to take the video. There's work that needs to be done so that you can upload it and record it and make sure, I don't know if you're going to touch us up a little bit before you put the video up. No, not even a bit.
Yeah.
So,
we're cheap and efficient.
Yeah, that's okay. So, there is some staff time, and I'm sure, there's probably people that say, well, geez, it must only take a few minutes just to upload this thing and do the whole YouTube thing. That has been brought up before. The staff recommendation was just to have, we're live streamed, of course, so you can tune in through YouTube. We did improve the sound. I was aware of that the sound was a challenge, but that's been improved. Could they be recorded? I suppose so, but I don't necessarily see
once you live stream it's there and it's recorded, you don't have to do anything else. There's not really much to it. It just sounded like it wasn't a priority, but I believe it's something that every municipality should be doing, because we have the technology to do it now. And not everybody can get to those meetings. You don't even have enough room for everybody to come to your meetings.
No.
Right? So
and people, it's funny is the wrong word, but very few people go. Even in my days in North Bay, we had a big gallery. I mean, you
can't eat popcorn and make noise or anything. And,
you can't.
If you were allowed to heckle the
sandwich,
counselors like a hockey game,
it might have been
the refs,
better.
It would be nice.
Yeah, but unfortunately, there's not much interest, especially after an election. Once that process, and then there'll be, people are a little angry and some are hurt, and the things, the first few months are a little.
Well, to be honest,
rough.
It's like watching paint dry some nights. So.
Yeah, and it's very procedural. It's very unless you understand what's happening. I know you spent years in those chambers. It's a little tough to.
Follow the bouncing ball.
Yeah, I mean, follow bouncing ball. It's not a soap opera, it's very dry municipal stuff. So, yeah, there's not much interest. I wish there was more. Now, the video I think helps. I think there's a few people that watch every other week.
Well, when you're interested and it's there, it should become part of the
permanent record.
It's part of the community record, right? And we have the technology. I watched the debate. I thought it went fairly well for all three of you. I thought you did fairly well.
Thanks.
Of course, you got the experience. What do you see as anybody that hasn't decided yet? Because I know you're running against two people that are born and raised there, and they got long family roots and whatnot. Those that haven't decided yet, where do you think the fertile ground is to convince them?
Well, the first thing he said, I find it interesting, the born and raised, I don't know how a long-standing person living there equates to good leadership or good vision. I can't put those two together.
No, family commitments and friends that will get back at you if you don't vote for them.
Well, there might be that.
There's more to it than just competency.
I came from Kippawa, Quebec. That's an even smaller town, so I can appreciate it. But what's fertile? I think one of the things that people need to do. We're working really hard to have people know me and understand where I stand on every issue that comes up. We already talked about one. If we can get me in front of people, if they watch the debate, if they read my website, we believe they will come to support me. I don't. I stand on when there's something that comes up with me. If I get asked a question, I'll tell you honestly the answer. Now, some people might see it as a weakness. I actually see it as a strength. So I say, this is what I believe in, and hopefully, if we don't agree with each other, there's that mutual respect. So, like I talked about the vision, I think that's going to matter. I'm hearing a lot from a candidate who's talking a lot about building a lot of things. We're an $8 million budget in the Callander. Our capital budget is, it's a good budget, but we need provincial help, federal help. We just can't do it on our own. There's talk of, a new sewage treatment plant and all these other things. And quite frankly, if they knew the municipal world a little bit better and knew how this worked, they could put us in some real financial trouble, and I'm worried about that. So, You know, do we think it's going to be an insurmountable hurdle? No, I don't think so. I think you know, I've personally been at 1,800 different locations throughout the municipality. So we're still working. I mean, there's a couple weeks left. So I think we can pull this off.
Now, I was looking at Gay Smiley's platform and some of the promises, and I watched the debate, and she, I think, you know, from my read of it, I haven't talked to Gay myself, but, you know, she had some bells and whistles that were announced that are like raising it up the flagpole kind of ideas, quite willing to back off because of, you know, unaffordable and practical maybe. Not bad politics, really.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe that's a good point. It reminds me when there's minority governments that are, you know, maybe third or fourth party. They tend to promise everything because they know they'll never get elected. I think I am quite disappointed that I saw, you know, there was all kinds of talk about build this, build that, and we're going to all these promises. And I think as this person is realizing that we don't have all the money, it might mean taxes. It will mean taxes going up. There's almost a retraction, and to me, if people are paying attention like you have, I think that says a lot. So when you're in a leadership role, you've got to be prepared to stand in a place. Now there's flexibility. I mean, there's new information. I get that, but we know 1 week or at the beginning of the campaign, it's one message, and now it's another. And I think that's unfortunate.
Well, you're just not making enough big grandiose promises, maybe.
Yeah. You know, I have never promised anything from the very first time I've ran. Like, I talk about where I stand, so I'll tell you where I stand on the budget. I'll tell you where I stand with infrastructure. You know, I'll work hard and those types of things, but I have never, and it's always been important to me. So if I would never have said to you, Dave, you know what, we're going to make sure that, you know, we're going to build a new ball field. You know, I support ball fields, was what I would say. And I do. You know, we're going to work with the province, we're going to work with the feds, we're going to get all together, and we're going to see if we can make this happen. But I've seen it time and time again. You see it federally, provincially, even municipally. And pretty slippery slope.
Now, Rob Newton's been on council for a long time. He's basically, I would say, the front runner of the three of you, is just based on his experience and tenure. What can you do that's different than Rob?
I think that's a great question. So I've said it, and I said at the debate. I have a lot of respect for Rob. I worked with him for a couple of years. He's a very good man. You know, what's the difference between Rob and I? I think that I have more leadership qualities than Rob. I think he's a great team member, but I don't necessarily think he should be wearing the C. You know, he's not necessarily the captain. So, you know, on the team, I think he should be on the team, but not the captain or leading or coaching. I'll give you a good example. So over on Golf Course Road, there's been a lot of challenges with that development. And I think the municipality should wear a little bit of it. I think the developer should wear a little bit of it. There's been a lot of challenges, not to mention that they ran into rock. So it's dig, rock.
From sawdust to rock.
Oh, it just kept delaying them. So, you know, my leadership style is I went and talked to the neighbors. You know, I went and talked to the developer. I went and looked in the hole. Now, I don't believe Rob went, and I know if he did, I stand corrected. You know, getting out in front of things is something that I believe in doing. Very visible in the community. You know, I've always done that. If there's an event to go to, I go to that event. I'm very clear on where I want to go. I don't necessarily believe that he has a clear path on where he wants to go. I think what I'm hearing is, you know, everything's going fine and I would just like to keep it this way. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with his approach, but if we do that, we're not moving forward.
Well, from what I'm hearing about the way you're describing it, and I understand it from my years of following North Bay and a few other municipalities, there's windows of opportunity for adding assessment and growth.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 years ago might have been a really good time to be in a place to accept investment and growth.
Yep.
Over the next 4 years, do you see that window being as wide open?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
tell me about that.
Absolutely. I think that times are different. Like when we bought, we were I can't remember exactly before COVID, but it was pre-COVID pricing, and they're
Excuse me.
nearly double. Should they be? I don't know. But absolutely, there's a window. Like what I'm seeing is North Bay's having record growth. I think they had another. I think the mayor just announced the record growth again. East Ferris, right next to Callander, had record growth. They made an announcement last year, and Callander has had very little growth. So you look around and you go, why? So the official plan doesn't allow estate subdivisions like Mr. Degagné does.
That's a good point.
We're simply not allowed to do it. I think that I couldn't believe when I found that out. The policies were very insular. There was some internal challenges with, I think, a belief system that developers are bad and they shouldn't be developing, and I think that's sad too. Do I think that window is going to close? No. I think Callander is a very desirable place to be. It's one of the best things my wife and I and our family ever did, and we love it there. And people want to visit that town. It's a quaint town. Having 20 assessments a year is not going to take that away, especially with the infill. And people want to visit it. And I absolutely believe that people will gravitate towards that area. There's lots of land. Ironically, Callander is very tight in the core. Like when you get there from Callander Bay Drive at the top end, but when you go out to the south end of Callander, there's all kinds of land. And, we need Mr. Degagné to be out there doing estate subdivisions. So, no, I think, will the young people be able to buy new homes? I don't know how that'll work, but I think society is going to adjust to this new reality. And housing is still, it's a problem Canada-wide. So, no, we're ready.
You could be ready.
That's a good point. We could be ready. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yep.
You may miss another window. I'm not giving out campaign advice or anything like that, but the way I see it, and from what you're saying and what I saw in the debate, there's a little bit of official plan tinkering that needs to go on to open up the possibilities of some smart growth in areas where they can be sustained. It's whether or not that this next mayor and council has the mandate to do that.
Well, that's a good point. So if I'm successful, I believe I think that's a clear mandate. I mean, I think what I'm hearing is that's what people want. I made a very concerted effort to list what do people want, and growth is one of them. Now they're like thoughtful planned growth. They don't want to see that high rise downtown. Neither do I. So yeah, we'll be ready, and it's maybe a great segue too. I don't know if we're going to touch on it, but that's something else that I want to do. The first couple of weeks, I have every intention it'll be the senior staff, the CAO, and council. We'll have to figure out where everybody's at. I think because that's never been done either, even on my days in North Bay, to say, okay, councillor, what do you believe in? What do you think we should be doing? It's kind of like you dive in and you just keep going with kind of staff direction at first. I want to sit down and say, okay, what would you like to see? And then we got to put this all into the center of the table, and then I really want to get everybody pointed in one common direction. Now, we're not always going to agree on everything, but if we can be mostly on the same page right out of the gate, and of course we're going to jump into budget and there's other challenges, but that'll make, in my opinion, a huge difference. Because I remember in my days in North Bay, you go through a campaign and there's all these things that you're thinking about, and there's no real forum to say, well, I wanted this to happen. You just, especially if there's a lot of incumbents, and it tends to just roll on, right?
Well, the way I handle my hacienda estate and my household budget, I make two lists. What can I do without spending money? And what do I need to save up money for?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So if you can get your staff and counselors to make a list of things you can change now that don't cost any money there and make things better, and focus in on those, as well as some of the longer term investment changes that need to be done that need investment in capital dollars. So.
You know, during the debate, there was that question. You watched it. That was, I think it was Mr. Gauthier from Lulu's. You know, if you had $1 million, that was one of the really good question. And you know, I might even bring that to council and say, so if we had it, you know, because everybody has these different priorities. I know, for example, your Councillor Carr is a real champion. You know, that she'd like a new fire hall. They need a new fire hall, but the new fire hall admin ops building. The preliminary estimate's $15 million, and that's you and I sitting here right now. That's not land prep. That's not, oh my goodness, now we need to add this, or is it net zero if we get federal money, and next thing it's $30 million. So it's another challenge we have, and we simply don't have the budget for it. Not the community by itself. So yeah, I really need to have the council recognize like the realities that the community's in. I think it's okay to have some dreams and to reach for them, but got to be real smart with $8 million.
I was trying to think of where it would make good sense to put fire hall in operations in Callander.
It's already been picked.
Yeah.
Yeah, the location. So if you're familiar with Callander, there's Swale Street that's by the community center.
Yep.
And if you're heading away from the core, and of course there's a bush across the street, it's essentially right kitty corner to there. It's already, they have the land in their possession. So they're at least one step closer than a lot of municipalities, you know. If you're trying to build something,
Doesn't
you
East
don't
Ferris
have
have a little bit of land across the highway?
Yeah, there's they're right. Actually, I was sitting with Mayor Rushford when we were at the 75th anniversary of at Legion 445, and she was, you know, talking about all the the plans that she has. She's hoping to put a light industrial like almost right next to Callander, right? So of course she's hedging her bet. She's, you know, I'm sure she talked to the other candidates too, but you know, she had to chat with me in case I'm successful.
Interesting. Yeah, you got a little bit of a challenge there, investing in a new township office, different location, and you're just sort of having it. But, you know, that's a great opportunity to rethink the way things are there. And you might have to make some incremental changes and maybe find some money somewhere.
Well, there's finding the money. You know, it's been suggested, like even the opposite. That's another great example. That, you know, we'll just sell that, which probably could happen. But that's been an operations building for a very long time. So there's more than likely some soil challenges. I'm not saying there is, but there more than likely is. So you can't just, a municipality, especially private sector advisors, are going to want to buy clean. They will not invest millions of dollars in something that they have to clean up. So that liability remains and always will remain with the municipality until something is done. Now you could make it into a parking lot. I heard that bounced around. It seemed a little odd to me that we would do that. I don't necessarily think the neighbors want to see another ops building. You know, I have a few friends that live right next to it, and it's challenging enough already. So, you know, would that happen? And who would buy a municipal building? I don't know. It's hard. We talked about accessibility. You know,
here's an idea, just right off the top of my head, right? Why not? What's missing in this region, and if you talk to Jamie Board at Board's Honey, she has a lot of knowledge about the farmers market, the area, the producers. We do have some food insecurity problems.
Yeah.
And they need that type of place for a storage of produce that a lot of the farmers can't invest themselves. It would be a nice parking lot to hold a farmer's market of some sort. Yeah. Like there are some things you could do there maybe that would be good for the region.
Yeah.
So maybe you can get some region.
I'd be happy to talk to her.
Well, it's something I talk to her about every once in a while when I bump into her at the farmer's market, and I never follow up and do the story, but food insecurity and the new way to go around it to make it so that local farmers can have a storage capacity. So there you go. That's my return to you for advertising in my magazine.
No problem. I'll write it down as soon as I get home.
Why not? Right, well, it'll be here on YouTube there, in case you forget.
Yeah.
What other important things would you like to talk about? Because I want to hear you say something and then challenge you and see how you take that.
Well, made it very, very clear in the debate, and I've been working really hard to make sure the community knows about like the library, because that's another very unfortunate thing. What I've said publicly is, if you want the best person to ask about my opinion is me. I've heard people saying what they think my opinion is, and I'm like, well, okay, I'm here now, and I'll tell you actually what my real opinion is. So I've had every opportunity that I get, I talk about the library. So the library is a capital campaign that is absolutely stalled out. It's not even on life support anymore. It is dead in the water. It's estimated, I cannot remember the gentleman's name, I'd heard estimates of $6.3 million. He is involved with the library. He believes it to be 4.5. It's still a lot of money. If we get federal money or provincial money, particularly federal money, there's always strings attached. Again, you've been doing this for a long time, and now they have net zero buildings. It happened with the arena in North Bay. It will more than likely double that, and that's old money too. This 4.5 million estimate is not new. That's several years old. So you fast forward, it's already more expensive money. And then you get federal money, it'll be 10, 12, 15 million. So another huge capital project that we cannot afford to do it. So what I found is it's just this hot potato. Nobody is saying, okay, so what do we do? And I made it very clear, and I'm really glad that I had a chance to bring it up. My very first external meeting will be with the library folks, the board, and the senior staff, and to say, of course, with the CAO, and say, okay, folks, this is stalled. We need to be honest with ourselves. So what's the options? Is there something else we can do? Because they only have $300,000 that they've raised, which is awesome because they have great donors and supporters, and the community is matching, so they're up to $600,000. But that's years now. They're nowhere near the money they need to get this thing going, and they're proposing to put it on the most valuable waterfront commercial property we have, and that's very counterintuitive to me too. The people in the community are saying that that yes, we need to support the library. There's got to be something we can do. I heard about the step that you told me about tonight. But to put that facility and that piece of land is not something that the community is overly thrilled about. So, but again, I want to be very clear. It's not because I'm against libraries. I support libraries. There's value to the library. But I have to be able to sit with these folks and say, okay, what can we do together to try to find a solution? Because the one that you're working on right now isn't happening. And it appears to me that it's just going to stay stalled for a long, long time.
What kind of design or building are they talking about for that much money? I don't understand, because I know what the library they have, and I know that's not good enough.
No.
I know the library that East Ferris has, and it's tight, but it's basically just a converted house.
Yep.
Should be able to build 3 houses for a couple $1 million.
Well,
is it overly designed?
Well, I mean...
Or, okay, tell me what are the elements of the new design that make it so expensive.
Well, there's floor space. I mean, it's a new build. There's a lot of glass. I mean, it's a very nice building. I've seen the renderings of it. I mean, it's very, very impressive.
Oh, no, they didn't get an architect.
Yeah, they got an architect.
That's the problem.
Okay, you said it. I didn't say it. No, but even with the ops, fire hall, and admin building.
Yeah.
So the design calls for, and it's hard to do it on an interview, but like 3 different blocks instead of 1 big block. And I've like, why don't we get a nice Butler building? We'll make the facade look very nice. Like, why do we have to complicate these things? It predates me. I'm not exactly sure how they ended up with the design, but I'm sure they had an opportunity. Like, these are very, very, very passionate people. Mm-hmm. And they want their library to be the best darn library they can have. So I'm sure when they had the opportunity to sit with the designer, they said, well, we would like to have this feature. We would like to be at the waterfront. And they are a community hub. So I just think maybe it got a little ahead of them too. But again, that history predates me by quite a few years.
The solution just came to me.
Yeah, that's 2 now.
Yeah. It can be all those things. It can be the community hub. It can be, but it needs to be built in stages.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, there's even a community center that's underutilized.
Because once you start building something, then you can get more money for it, right?
Yeah.
But if it's too big of something that to chew in the fund, then it gets dead in the water. right? So
Well, and the other thing, David, again, we've been around this a long time. Everything's really, really good until you get to that point where suddenly people are saying, how much is this going to cost me? Like, as a taxpayer, is my tax bill going to go up 6, 7, 8%? And then people suddenly start to slow down. They say, well, wait a minute, what do we really, right back to what do we really need? Like, what would work for the community, for the passionate people at the library, compared to the wants? And that's something that we got to sit down. I have to get in front of them and say, what's the plan? Because there will be nothing happening with the way they're doing it now.
so you need an achievable plan, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and options.
So I was talking to this old guy there. He was complaining about his water bill the other day.
I might know the guy you're talking about. Yeah.
And he's going to have to learn to grow green grass without water.
Yeah. I told him to get rain barrels, but I don't think he's going to listen to me.
Oh no. What is the problem with Callander's water bill? That seems pretty expensive. Even just to water your grass.
Yeah, it's a little bit cheaper than when I was living in North Bay, but not a whole heck of a lot. It's municipal services like everything else. Just keep going up. People are getting, or they would like to get paid more. They often do. Gas, food, you name it. There's not a bill that comes in that's less.
So he's going to have to collect water and do it that way. Yeah. Well, a lot of other people have to do it, right? So.
Yeah. I'll talk to him tonight too. I'll give him a call.
Anything? Last thing you want to throw in here?
No, yes, I suppose. Thanks, first of all.
Oh, you're
We've
welcome.
known each other for a lot of years, and it's always good to talk to you. I just think, I'm absolutely ready to be the mayor. It almost feels like this is where I was meant to be. I know the municipal world very, very well, and there's that vision. It's very clear, and I really hope people reach out. Check out the website, darylvaillancourt.com. I have a Facebook page. It's more of a personal thing, but if you want to get to know who I am, because there's a bit of that too, kind of making me look to be the big bad Daryl guy, and that's simply not true. So I'm really looking forward to being the mayor, and I hope I have everybody's support.
Well, I was thinking about running for North Bay Council last year, and I gave it a lot of thought. And I thought with my achieved experience and perspective and newfound maturity, I was in a position I could do that, and I could serve the community that way. But I decided no. And you're a better man than me then.
Oh, I know.
I was too. I didn't want to commit, and I thought it was an 8-year commitment, really. Right?
Yeah.
It's not a 4-year commitment. It was going to be an 8-year commitment, really. And I just thought I'd give myself some more room to have some options and to do this type of thing, which I'm kind of more into.
Yeah.
But I don't know, good for you to want to put your experience to use.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I really do.
Civic duty. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Been doing it for a while now. Thanks, Dave.
Well, maybe we'll see what happens if you're mayor. We'll sit down and do another interview.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right
Anytime.
on. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.